What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys today, and I am back for another episode. As you know, it is Friday. It's Thursday when we're recording this, but Friday this will come out, and that means it's another preview episode. I am joined by the man himself, Andy Herman. Andy, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, appreciate it, Nick. Excited to talk Packers Steelers with you. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, it should be. This is going to be Sunday Night Football, pretty hype game, the Aaron Rodgers storylines. Just to kind of kick it off, I mean, I know this is the Steelers fans' first year with Aaron Rodgers, but can you just put into perspective real quick just what those 18 years with Aaron Rodgers were like and what it still means to the Green Bay Packers even now?
Yeah, I mean, it's surreal still to sort of think about in so many different ways of when Brett leaves and when you're trading away Brett, or even like the years before that when he's sort of hinting at, hey, retirement's around the corner. I might retire, I might not retire. You're just thinking Brett's gone or Brett's going to leave and it's just going to be totally different. And how can they possibly replace Brett Favre? And they replace him with somebody better, which is really remarkable to think about. And for him to come in and so immediately have such a massive impact. And then, that's obviously the huge positive side. The 2010, you come in and I think everyone in 2010 sort of thought the Packers are, not to bring up 2010 to Steelers fans, so my apologies for that. But in 2010, I think everyone sort of thought the Packers were 1 year kind of away from probably being that Super Bowl contender. And of course, 2011, they go 15-1 in the regular season and lose in the first round of the playoffs. 2010, they go 10-6 and win the Super Bowl. But it was, and then you win the Super Bowl, and everyone's expecting, oh my God, they've already won a Super Bowl with Aaron in 2010. How many more of these is he going to get to in Green Bay? This is going to be unbelievable. And then, of course, he doesn't return to a Super Bowl, not due to any fault of his own. Of course, he was unbelievable during his entire time in Green Bay. And then you get to the end of that era, and I think everyone, whereas the Favre saga ended, and it was clearly not everyone was not ready for the Favre saga to end, and it was really difficult for people to transition to Aaron. At the end of the Aaron thing, you could almost tell like most of the fan base was like, all right, it feels like it's probably kind of time. Not everyone, of course, but it felt like that was sort of the overwhelming sort of idea. And then, of course, you go to Jordan, and that's another story in and of itself. But his time in Green Bay, was just unbelievable what he did from beginning to end. I still think his stretch in his true prime was as good, if not better, than any quarterback play. I mean, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and others certainly in that conversation as well, but as good as any thrower of the quarterback ever. I still think Brady's probably the greatest of all time based on accomplishments, but that's a long-winded way of saying he was unbelievable in Green Bay, and it was a heck of a journey. And this is just sort of a really interesting side quest of both of these teams of seeing Aaron Rodgers go against the Green Bay Packers this week.
Yeah, and Rodgers this year, I mean, he's 41 and he still has the arm. I mean, I've seen numerous examples of it already, only through 6 games, and it's really fun to watch. But let's talk about Jordan Love. So I know Aaron mentored Jordan Love, and sometimes every now and then when you're watching Jordan, you see a little Rodgers every now and then. He took some things from his game. But talk about this offense. I mean, this offense, they don't put up it's not like they're putting up 40 every week. They're not some high flying group, but they are very productive, very good on third down. He spreads it around to basically everybody. There's not necessarily a number one, but Golden, Kraft, Watson when he'll come back, which seems to be this week, and then you have Jacobs in the backfield. Talk to me about this passing offense and kind of how it's working. And do they do quick game? Are they a downfield passing attack? And how they're going to attack the Steelers specifically, given they run so much man-to-man and single high?
Yeah, they may not put up 40 every. What you need to be aware of is that they don't put up 27 points. In their 4 wins this year, they've scored 27 points exactly in all 4 of their wins. When they scored 40 points, they tied. When they scored 10 points, they lost. But if they score 27 exactly, they're 4-0. So that's what you need to be careful of. But in honestly, for this offense, they want to be a ultra balanced and almost run first team, even with the weapons that they have at wide receiver, even with Jordan at quarterback. They would love to be a Josh Jacobs and run first offense. That being said, their run blocking has not been really good at all so far. And so that's been a bit of an issue. They end up in a lot of third and long situations. They're the best third down team in the NFL, so it's been okay for them. But that's definitely been a problem. Josh Jacobs has been really good. I know this has been a week of wondering about PFF grades, but Jacobs is PFF's top graded running back, despite only having 3 yards per carry. And a lot of that's due to he is making a lot of things look good that should not look good based on how the run blocking has been. So I think that's going to be the first thing for Green Bay is, can they get this run offense going? What Matt really wants to do is let the defense dictate, meaning or let the defense dictate what the offense is going to do. If the defense is playing, too high safety and you're playing back, like he just said, all right, we're going to run the ball against you. And that's been a bit of an issue so far because, again, the run blocking hasn't been good enough. And if you're going to come up and play that, single high safety and try to stop the run, they want to be able to throw on you. So it's not super complicated. Whatever the defense is trying to take away, he wants to be able to do the other thing. And again, running the football has been a bit of an issue, but Jordan's been really good. Now, the thing about you guys, obviously, you guys take away the ball quite a bit. Jordan is usually going to give you, unlike Aaron, who is the most risk-averse quarterback in the history of the NFL. I know he threw 2 picks last week, but Jordan is going to give you one just about every single game. And the big question is, do you take it away or not? He only has 2 picks on the season, so that's a good start, but there have definitely been some other opportunities for defenders. And then he usually kind of misses one bad throw per game where it's just like completely wildly inaccurate. And then the rest of the game, he's almost perfect. Like he's been unbelievable down in and down out, whatever the down and distance. But one other thing, just really quick to kind of be noteworthy of as well. This past week against Arizona, what the Cardinals really did was they played a ton of too high safety. They kept the umbrella over the top and said, you're not going to be able to get those big plays. And Jordan and this Packers offense want to push the ball down the field, and they want to get those big plays. And they had some opportunities for it, but they really want to. And they really forced Jordan to try to be patient, and he struggled with that a bit, and the offense struggled with that a bit. They didn't want to just take those checkdowns. They were still trying to look for those down the field plays. So it's going to be interesting for Pittsburgh if they, kind of play their normal branded defense, and Matt LaFleur almost, hinted at this a little bit in his press conference as well, or if they're going to copy a little bit from Arizona and say, all right, we're going to see if Jordan can, take the checkdowns when he needs to and take some of the short stuff, or if he's going to kind of continue to try to force the ball down the field when there's 2 safeties and they're playing a little bit over the top. So I think that's going to kind of be an interesting sidebar in this one as well.
Yeah, and the Steelers are coming off their worst secondary performance of the year. I think that's also something, but that's a short week. Thursday nights are not sticky generally, so who knows what's going to happen there. But that's, I think, going to be the fascinating thing. The Steelers kind of play what they play. They usually just come out and single high, but last week a little more split safety looks. So they were starting to sprinkle in quarters, cover 2, and I wonder if we maybe see a little more of that this week. So that'll be interesting. One way Joe Flacco and the Bengals kind of killed the Steelers, though, was quick game. They just quick gamed him. I think Flacco had a 2.27 time to throw in that game. Chase and Higgins and others were just getting in on it because they were just getting 5, 6, 7 yards and getting yak, and the Steelers were missing tackles. Talk about the quick game specifically of this Packers offense, because Jordan Love, when they go quick game, very productive. It seems like they're working very well. I think the completion percentage is up at like 89% right now, but they don't really do it a ton. Like they don't quick game you to death. As you mentioned, they kind of want to go down the field. And I imagine with Christian Watson probably back in the fold, that's only going to kind of strengthen the want to go down the football field specifically.
Yeah, really quick on Watson. I think the big question is going to be what's his capacity to play in this game. I mean, I think he's going to play, but is it like a 10 to 12 snap count thing? Is it 20? I don't think it's going to be much more than that. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see just how much he actually does play coming off that ACL and MCL injury and being active for his first time. As far as you nailed everything right on the head, they've been super efficient with the quick game stuff. It's definitely an extension of the run game and something that's worked, quite frankly, a little bit better than the run game, but they haven't used a ton of it. Again, they want to get into some of those deeper drops. They want to be able to challenge down the field, and they're usually good at challenging down the field. But again, that's where that cat and mouse game comes in of, hey, if the defense is saying we're dictating, we're going to play 2 high safeties, split safeties, and we're going to make you force you to throw the ball short. Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to take those short and intermediate throws? I think the other thing that has affected it a little bit too is it's been really understated about how important Jaden Reed is to this offense, and his injury and him being out and not playing, I think, takes away some of that stuff as well. Now, Matthew Golden's taking kind of that spot a little bit. He's a really good player. Dontavian Wicks is dealing with a calf injury. He may not play in this game. So you do end up with a wide receiver core for Green Bay that has no Jaden Reed, might not have Dontavian Wicks, and might have Christian Watson on a pretty significant snap count. You're probably going to see a lot of Romeo Doubs, a lot of Matthew Golden, a lot of Tucker Kraft and Josh Jacobs, and then that other receiver spot, a little bit of Watson sprinkled in, and then Malik Heath is probably going to be a little bit of the other one, maybe a little bit of Savion Williams, their third-round pick as well. And Heath is basically a decoy run-blocking guy. He hasn't done much in the actual passing game whatsoever. So if that can be Watson, or if Wicks can somehow come back, it gives them another viable option. But right now, it's going to be, I think, a lot of Dobbs, Matthew Golden, and just a little bit of Christian Watson sprinkled in this week.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. You mentioned that Mike Tomlin said in his press conference, first thing they want to do is actually slow down Josh Jacobs, which makes sense if you kind of look through the lens there. But let's flip to the other side of the ball. This Packers defense, tops of the league in many of the categories that you want to look at traditionally. Obviously, Micah Parsons has been a big-time addition to them and their front. Talk to me about the addition of Parsons, what he's done for this Packers front, and how specifically they've been able to get after the quarterback, even though the sack to kind of pressure to sack numbers aren't great. It seems like at some point, I think they're 5th in pressure rate and 22nd in pressure to sack rate. That's got to have some positive regression. At some point, I think you saw some of that last week.
Yeah, I think so. They had 6 sacks a week ago. You mentioned Joe Flacco and the quick passing game and cutting apart some of the Steelers' defense. The Packers have had the exact same issue. Dak Prescott getting the ball out of his hands quick 3 weeks ago, or 3 games ago, as the Cowboys put up 40 points. Joe Flacco got the ball out of his hands quick against Green Bay. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins ate them up a little bit. Quick passing game beat them. And then this past week, even Jacoby Brissett, when he was willing to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and even some of the stuff down the field, the Marvin Harrison Jr., was certainly working for him as well. This defense has not been great in that quick passing game. And obviously, you guys with Aaron, one of the quickest to throw in the NFL, getting the ball out of his hands, being able to diagnose defenses, that's been a kryptonite for this Packers defense. And it's mitigating a lot of what Micah Parsons is doing. He has been unbelievable. I mean, when you say, if he's been as advertised, it would be a large understatement for what he's brought to this defense so far. He is winning darn near every single snap. It is like, Nick, I've trained myself to take my eye off the ball when I'm watching games and watch the trenches and watch as much as I can of not just watching where the ball goes. I now have to try to train myself not to watch Micah Parsons when he's on the field, because it's just almost an instant win. The Arizona Cardinals made a catastrophic mistake of deciding that they were going to go one-on-one with Micah Parsons in multiple situations. He won all 3 of his sacks last week and had a 4th as well that was called back because he did a hip drop tackle on it. Only, I think, the second hip drop tackle called in NFL history. But he won all 3 of those sacks on one-on-ones, including in the red zone on one of the first drives that resulted in a field goal because of it, in the red zone on another drive that resulted in a field goal because of it, and on the final drive of the game when Arizona's trying to drive down and score a touchdown, he gets that sack, which limits them to have a mini Hail Mary at the end to try to win that game as well. He even double teams right now. You might think for most players, obviously you guys are well familiar with what TJ Watt's capable of as well. You double Micah right now, and he's still splitting those. It's absolutely astounding. I'm not sure. And I've seen Reggie White in his prime. I've seen Charles Woodson in his prime. I've seen some pretty darn good defenders come through Green Bay. It's a small sample size. It's 6 games in. I'm not sure I've seen anything quite like what Micah Parsons is doing right now. He's on an absolute heater. It's a ton of fun to watch. And the big thing for Green Bay is, can their corners play well enough to disrupt some of that short passing game, so it just gives Micah and that defense a little bit more time to get home? Because if any quarterback ends up holding the ball a little bit, it is a massive problem with what he's doing up front right now.
Yeah, the Steelers will utilize very similarly what they did 2 weeks ago when they faced Myles Garrett. And I think the Steelers have plenty of experience facing top edge rushers. Myles Garrett is, of course, one of those. And they kind of took him out of the game. He didn't, I think he had 3 pressures, 0 QB hits, 0 sacks in that game. They rolled away from him. They did a bunch of different things to mitigate his impact. I'm sure they're going to do the same to Micah. But I think the difference here is I feel like the Rashawn Garys of the world make it a little tougher there. We'll see if Van Ness plays. I don't know with that foot issue if he will play.
Doesn't seem like he's going to. It seems like Van Ness is going to be out for this one. Devontae Wyatt, maybe. And that Wyatt's a big one in this game, because even what we're kind of talking about, when you've got Gary and Micah off the edge, and you've got those 2 guys kind of collapsing the pocket off the edge, you really need that guy in the middle that's disrupting to also, because what we've seen is they're winning off the edge. And whether it's been Flacco or Dak or, this past week, Jacoby Brissett, just that one extra tick where you can just step up in the pocket a little bit and even find a check down is mitigating some of those pressures and not making them sacks and turning them into 5 or 6 yard gains. And when they had Wyatt in the middle in those first few weeks, disrupting everything up front as well and getting in the middle of the defense, now you just have nowhere to go as a quarterback. So he's been huge. He did return to practice on Wednesday. It sounded like he looked very limited. So even if he does go, he may not be 100% or he may not have a full snap count, but he's definitely one to watch for this week.
Yeah, I think that'll be important. I also think the Steelers are going to try and run the ball because that's what they do. And past 3 weeks, over 100 yards, Jalen Warren has come alive. He's been, similarly to Josh Jacobs, it's like the same story. Starting the year, the run blocking was terrible, but he was able to create things just by kind of working in space. And I think he's had 2 games this year with 10 or more missed tackles forced. That's kind of what he's done. So talk to me about this Packers run defense, where they stand. I mean, you have when you look at it, very good linebacker duo in Edge Cooper and Quay Walker. They have guys up front that should be good at that. So how's the run defense kind of working, especially against a zone team like the Steelers, who are going to want to attack the edges and cut that back with guys like Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell?
Yeah, the Packers have allowed the fewest rushing yards in the NFL. Part of that's because they had the bye week, but even if you do yards per game, they're second only to Seattle in rushing yards per game allowed, 76.5 rushing yards allowed. I do think a little bit of that is outside of the Arizona game. In every other game, they got to a double-digit lead pretty quick in the game, which does mitigate some of that. But even yards per carry, or no matter what metric you want to look at, they've been really good against the run. And even last year, going back a year, they were pretty darn good against it as well. I do think there are opportunities to run against Green Bay. It was interesting because I thought Arizona ran better, and then you go back and look at the stats, and I don't think they had a rush over 9 yards. It was still around 3 yards per carry, and I think they were held under 100 yards rushing in total as well. But I do think there is some opportunity there. The really interesting thing about this run defense is, if you would have said to, I think, any Packers fan, hey, Kenny Clark is gone, Devontae Wyatt is potentially out for games, and you've got Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks manning the interior of your defensive line, I think and TJ Slayton left in free agency as well, I think everyone would have been like, oh, no, please do not. That's a bad idea. Do not do that. And Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks, with a 6th-round rookie Warren Brinson and an undrafted free agent in Nasir Stackhouse backing up on the interior of that defensive line, have really held their own. Colby Wooden especially has taken a monster step in year 3 and has been their best non-Devontae Wyatt defensive tackle so far. Obviously, Wyatt being out the last few games, but he's been really, really impressive. You would think, even just again on paper, you would say like, yeah, you're going to be able to run on the interior of that defense. They haven't been. Quay Walker's played a lot more physical at linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper flies around everywhere. And the big thing too is this secondary comes up and really rallies to the football and fills their gaps the way that they need to, especially from the safety position with Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. And then in the nickel, Javon Bullard is a safety that's just a heat-seeking missile that plays from the slot and is not afraid of contact or stopping the run. And it just makes it a whole heck of a lot harder. Even Isaiah McDuffie, their third linebackers, played really well against the run so far, and their edge defenders, I think, are some of the best at setting the edge in the NFL. So it has not been easy sledding for any team rushing against Green Bay. I do still think there's more opportunity there for teams, but so far Green Bay has not shown that to be an issue whatsoever.
Yeah, this will be a big test for the Steelers, who have really kind of started to heat up there, and I think they're going to do it. It's what they are, and I think that's going to be a big part of it. But kind of finishing this out on the football side of things, let's talk about that quick passing game. The other thing I noticed when I look at this, some tight end troubles. Feels like McBride had 2 touchdowns. It seems like every week the Packers struggle against tight ends, and the Steelers obviously have not one, but 3 of them that they utilize. No one targets tight ends more in the NFL than Aaron Rodgers. I think 34% of his targets have gone towards tight ends. Pat Freiermuth coming off a huge game. Darnell Washington's come up and had a really kind of big impact on this offense. And then Jonnu Smith has been kind of the flex guy in there. So talk to me about the struggles against tight ends, what's causing that, and specifically this secondary, and kind of why they're struggling against this quick passing game. Is it schematic? Is it they're struggling to maybe mirror and match? What's kind of the common point there?
All of the above, I think, is probably the answer. You're first of all, you're spot on with tight end. So this has been the tight end production so far against Green Bay. Sam Laporte in the first game had 6 catches for 79 yards. Zach Ertz had 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown in the second game. Njoku plus Fannin in the third game, 8 catches for 65 yards combined. Jake Ferguson for the Cowboys led them with 7 catches, had 40 yards and a touchdown. The Bengals tight ends, they probably got a little bit lucky that Gesicki goes out early in that game. They still had 9 catches, only 35 yards, but also a touchdown in that game. And Trey McBride had 10 catches for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. So through 6 games, they're allowing 46 catches, 357 yards, and 5 touchdowns to those aforementioned tight ends. It's been a lot of productivity. And to your point, the Steelers use a lot of 3 tight end sets, a lot of double tight end looks, and are very willing to throw to their tight ends quite often. So I would expect that to be a potential issue. And the thing for Green Bay, and Jeff Hafley's basically come out and said this, they're focused on stopping the run and stopping explosive plays. Like, as you know, in the NFL, you can't take away everything, right? So you have to kind of pick and choose where your strengths and weaknesses are kind of going to be a little bit. And Green Bay's basically decided, we're not going to allow you to get explosive plays down the field. Arizona did have a few last week, which was a little bit alarming, but outside of that, they have not really allowed many explosive plays at all. And then they've done, as we talked about, done really well against the run. But it's some of the short and intermediate stuff that's given them a lot of troubles, both on the outsides and then to the tight ends over the middle. Now, this team is a pretty good tackling team. They rally to the football really well. And a lot of these checkdowns or short passes that end up happening are usually brought to the ground pretty quick. And it's more of a test of the opposing offense of, can you stay patient? Can you go on a 15, 16 play drive without having a holding penalty, a fumble, an interception, etc., and still get 7 on the board? Green Bay's done some bending, but not breaking as well and holding teams to field goals. But there have been a lot of these paper cut the team to death drives, which is, had 16, 17, 18 play drives, have allowed touchdowns, have put points on the board, and have limited the Packers offense as well, just because so much time of possession goes to the opposing teams on those. So the corners have been not good so far. Nate Hobbs has been a big time target. I would expect Aaron to go after him quite a bit. And if you're looking for positives from a Steelers standpoint, what the Packers have struggled with are a lot of the Steelers' strengths on the Steelers' offensive side of the ball. They've struggled with quick processing quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks that get rid of the ball quickly. Hello, Aaron Rodgers. They struggle with tight ends. Hello, all of your 3 tight end sets and the variety of different looks that you can, provide there. And they struggle with the big physical receiver on the outside. They struggle with George Pickens. They struggle with Jamar Chase. They struggle this past week with Marvin Harrison. And you guys, of course, have DK Metcalf. So there are some things that look very advantageous for Pittsburgh offensively, being exactly what Green Bay's kind of struggled with defensively so far.
Yeah, and the Steelers have had penalty issues the last 2 weeks. Rodgers has turned the ball over twice last week, despite playing just really well. So there are some things the Steelers have to clean up there, but they have had the ability to paper cut teams to death. They've done it before. So I'm interested to see what happens there. Calvin Austin also going to come back. That'll be a big boost to the Steelers passing game, just on the outside. Andy, thanks for coming on. Tell them where they can watch your stuff, read your stuff, follow you, all that great stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at Andy Herman NFL on social media. And if you're trying to keep the enemy closer, you can find me on the Pack a Day podcast 365 days a year. And we'll, of course, have a lot of previews over there, including with Nick, as we do a little bit of a home and home. So you can check that out as well.
Yeah, folks, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell here. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB and read the stuff at PennLive.com/Steelers. And thanks for watching, everybody.